Yeah, I think it's a popular thing right now to say that you can't love anyone else until you love yourself. And I think that is true. I think you do need to start with self-love. Start in the sense of it comes first in time. It's not the purpose. The teachings for the New Church compare it to a foundation for a house. You need to start with the foundation of a house, but you can't plunk down a foundation and be like, we're good, we got the house. The point of the foundation is what you build on it. And loving yourself is the same way. You gotta take care of your needs, and not even just like physical needs, but spiritual needs, emotional needs. Really, that is a starting point. If you're on a plane and you watch the introduction video, it says that if you lose oxygen and the masks come down, you gotta put your own mask on before you help a child with their mask, because if you try to help the other person without taking care of yourself, no one is helped.
What happens after we die? How does prayer actually work? What's heaven like? Or hell, for that matter? On this show, we interviewed Christian ministers from a Swedenborgian denomination to explore the biggest philosophical and religious questions of all time. Join us for some big spiritual questions.
Our natural tendency is going to be toward caring for ourselves first. And that manifests in a whole bunch of different ways. And the New Church says, in its right place, that's okay. That's like the feet, or feet and legs on a body. You need feet and legs. You take someone out at the legs, they're not standing anymore. If someone lacks any regard for themselves, any care for themselves, they're not actually going to be in a place to serve other people very well. So the higher things are serving other people and serving the Lord. And if the body is orientated that way, then we're all good. There's a place for a healthy caring for ourselves.
The writings for the New Church hold this idea of spirituality as something that rests on a natural existence. People who try to check out of the natural world because there are pleasures in the natural world and they seem like a distraction, they actually kind of lose a foundation for spirituality. We can think of it in the 4 loves that the doctrines for the New Church talk about. Love to the Lord, love to the neighbor, love of the world, and love of the self. In that order, as a hierarchy from higher to lower. If we take away the love of self, it's like washing away a foundation and all the rest topples down. That's us if we don't attend to the things of the natural world. That includes our bodies, that includes our finances, that also includes our recreation. And if we don't attend to those, it can be hard to have the reserves to deal with the spiritual aspects of who we are.
There's a beautiful teaching in the work True Christianity that says we're not born for the sake of ourselves, we're born for other people. Great. That's a beautiful idea, but that doesn't mean we lose ourselves entirely. We have something to offer. The best way we can serve other people is to bring what we have to offer to that, not have ourselves disappear. I know and love some good people who learned that they needed to disappear themselves in order to serve other people, and they're growing out of that relationship with serving other people. So I would say I am still figuring this one out, and when we get to 85 and have worked on it our whole lives, then we'll have some good clarity about it, more than I do right now.
All right. So this self-care question is an important one. And it would start out with this, like obviously anything in its appropriate measure is healthy, like eating, drinking, all that in its appropriate measure is healthy. And we can look at the same thing with self-care, but don't make self-care the point. And it's one of those parts for me personally, as a pastor, that is maddening sometimes, because we live in a culture where that's like the final answer. Many times I'll be in environments and somebody will be like, yes, and always remember to take care of yourself. Well, I think that's the problem, is we always remember to take care of ourselves, right? We don't think about others. So religion just becomes a private salvation project, a private self-fulfillment project. That's not what faith is really all about, It was interesting. This one pastor I really liked, he was talking to his grandmother, and her and her husband had a farm, and he asked his grandmother, well, did you feel fulfilled with being a farmer's wife? And do you think Grandpa felt fulfilled being a farmer? And she just looked at him because she couldn't get the question. She couldn't get the question because that wasn't the point. The point was they had a family. They wanted to take care of their family. Go do that. That's what mattered. And I think a lot of that, Maslow and his hierarchy of needs, which many of us grew up with as almost biblically true, that self-actualization is at the very top of the pyramid. The way you really know when someone's really got it is that they're self-actualized. Well, I know a lot of people who are jerks who are completely self-actualized. That's no great feat. And I hate to say that, but this is a soapbox one for me. I'm actually far more interested about self-forgetfulness. Can we forget our own needs and serve other people? And can we overdo that? Absolutely. And that could be its own game that we need to correct on. But my 2 cents in this era, we're way too much into self-care. We want to keep it in measure, but you want to remember the name of the game in the end is not you. The name of the game in the end is what are you doing to serve other people?
Starting with love of self doesn't mean making it the most important thing. And the point, just like the point of the house is not the foundation, the point of self-love is, can I love myself enough that it enables me to serve others and serve God? Now, for one thing, is that there's no easy way to tell the difference. There's going to be times when we are loving ourselves in a harmful way and we don't realize it. That's just the way love of self is going to be. It's sort of the harmful kind of love of self hides itself. But red flags are when we notice ourselves putting ourselves above others, making ourselves more important than others, rather than I'm going to take care of myself so I can love others. Instead saying, you know what, I have a choice between giving and taking, and I'm going to take. Those kind of situations where we have everything we need, we're taken care of, and we still take more at the expense of others, that's when we can start noticing, you know what, maybe that's that harmful kind of self-love rearing its head.
Are we taking advantage of the people in our lives so that we can take care of the lower aspects of ourselves? If we're doing that, then I think we're missing the point. But if we're ignoring those lower things, we can't ever see the point. The Lord gives us this whole spectrum of our existence, from the lowest part of who we are in the natural, all the way up to the spirit. Let's take advantage of all of that in a healthy way.
I like the shift that the book 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, its way of treating self-care is sharpening the saw, like doing the self-care stuff to sharpen the tool that is you. And sometimes that's like taking a vacation or taking some downtime or stepping away from a situation that you can't handle. But sometimes it's like studying up on your craft or practicing to get better at something, or that kind of thing. That's also self-care. Like a way that I self-care is spending time with people, right? When I'm feeling down, a way that I get out of that rut is I go and I spend time with people that make me feel alive, that make me feel happy, that make me feel full. And that gives me the energy to readdress. It's not just about, I'm gonna spoil myself, right? Because that just makes me feel like I'm wallowing and I'm just this little shut-in that's mucky and can't do anything and just needs to curl up and never move again, right? But breaking out of that and doing something with a person I love and giving them my attention feels like self-care to me. But that's a way that self-care feels clearly distinguished from like excuses or wallowing to me.
Different people might need different advice on this, because I know a lot of people who go so far to say, you know what, I'll never take anything for myself, and they end up burning themselves out. They accuse themselves of selfishness when what they're really looking at is self-care. So I want to be cautious with that. But if you do recognize selfishness, I think simply just saying, yep, I know that's there and I'm going to do something different anyway, rather than trying to fight against it or anything else, just say, yep, that's a thing. I'm acting in this unselfish way, even though I don't feel like it, or even though that part of me doesn't feel like it. So I think there's a power in simply being able to name it and acknowledge it and say, yep, it's there, and I don't have to let that define who I am, rather than trying to squish it and pretend it's not there.
How much am I using self-care as a crutch to not do something because it's hard? And just to share a personal experience, this is something I go through a lot with struggling with ADHD. There are times where I don't feel like I'm in charge of what my brain is doing. I always ask myself, do I need to put up a boundary? Or I always question, and sometimes usefully and sometimes destructively, am I just being selfish? Am I just being lazy? And finding that point at which you're using self-care as a excuse instead of as a growth opportunity just takes you being honest with yourself. When is it because it's easier versus because it's better for you? And self-care is supposed to happen because it's better for you and thus better for everyone else. Because when you're taking care of yourself, you can take care of other people.
This is why I think actually focusing on selfishness and unselfishness isn't always the best plan. The teachings for the New Church talk about if you live a life where you're shunning evils as sins, and so you're saying, I am not going to murder, either spiritually or physically, not going to cause harm with my words or my actions. If we're keeping in mind those more specific things rather than the big vague thing of selfishness, if we're working on those more specific things, then we can basically do what we want. Selfishness is too big to get a handle on a lot of the time, and people end up being self-sacrificial in ways that are actually harmful. And so rather than trying to parse, is that too selfish or is that not too selfish? If it's not a sin and you feel like you need a nap, go take a nap. So that's why, even though I think there's a sort of reality to that selfishness underlies all evil, I think you've got to deal with the more granular stuff most of the time rather than trying to just do it based on a sense of, is this selfish or not? Otherwise, it's so easy to end up burning yourself out and feeling still like you're too selfish.
So, what do you think? Comment your thoughts below or click on the link in the description to go to our website and contact us directly. If you want to support us, likes, comments, and subscriptions, as you know, are perfect. This show, just so you know, is produced by the General Church of the New Jerusalem, a branch of Swedenborgianism commonly known as the New Church. Our religion holds the Bible sacred and uses the writings of Emanuel Swedenborg to help distill its stories and parables beyond the literal scripture. If you're curious, no pressure, the link's in our description. Or, just watch more videos.